All right, how are we doing today? Hope everybody's doing good. Peace, power, blessings, everybody. We're continuing with our lesson uh, from the React Router tutorial, where we are building an address book. And once again, this tutorial is from reactrouter.com and their docs. So I post the link to the docs in the description for this video. I'm not getting paid by React Router. Maybe one day they will pay me. That'd be great if they choose to do that. But as of right now, no, they're not. So I'm just doing this because it's a labor of love. It's a passion of mine. Uh, this type of work and being able to teach it. So again, as I stated before, these lessons are meant to one show you how React Router works, but I think what is ultimately more fruitful is that you are learning how to go through documentation and learn on your own because that's something on your journey as a developer you'll always want to have. You always want to know how to go and get information, where to get information from, and so that piece is super important. So, anyways, moving right along with this, we're really close to being finished, completed with this project here. And we're looking at URL search params and get submissions. So what does this mean? We have the URL, which is essentially our address bar, okay? And we have what's called search parameters, meaning how we're able to search for information, or more likely, if we look at our application here, if I have a search input field, and when I type in, uh, a contact here, then I wanted to search for that contact, right? I want to locate it. So how do we go about doing that? And that is with using search params as well as get submissions. So that's where we are right now. And we can see here, all of our interactive UI so far has been either links that change the URL, right? So I can come up here and, excuse me, I could click a link down here rather, that or forms that post data to action forms. So like when you click press new and it creates a new contact and it creates the field for us to put in the contact information. So that form there. The search field is interesting because it's a mix of both. It's a form, but it only changes the URL. It doesn't change data. Let's see what happens when we submit the search form. Type a name into the search field and hit the enter key. Okay, so Michael Jackson is back. So if I type Michael and hit enter, see nothing's going on. Since it's not form method post, React Router emulates the browser by serializing form data into the URL search params. So in other words, I can look right up here and I can see Michael as a search param right here. This question mark Q equals Michael. This is our search. So in other words, what's happening here is saying, hey, look for something that reads Michael, some text that reads Michael. Loader functions have access to the search params from the request. Let's use it to filter the list. So here we go. Because loader, as you can see here, the loader functions, they have access to the search params. So we can get access to our search params up here, and then we can filter through the list of contacts. So filter the list if there are URL search params. So we got to change up stuff a little bit. Let's go into sidebar. I need to find my sidebar. There you are. Let's come up here. And what does it have us do? So we're gonna We have our existing imports and exports, and then we're going to uh, write a new async function loader. So that will go right here, I suppose. Um, yeah, let's do that. I suppose we just add what we have here. Because this is loader, export async function loader. We have contacts. Yeah, so let's add this stuff up here. So let's destructure, say requests. It was request. No, just request. No S. There you go. And then oh, route dot loader args. All right, we got that baby over there. Now we need the URL, so take we're gonna instantiate and get a new instance of the URL object, passing in the URL, the request URL, and we're gonna store that here inside a container called URL. So a new instance of URL, pass in request, the request object, and get the URL property. As always, when you want to know what something is, okay, like here I'm again, you see I'm destructuring, I'm getting the request object, okay. This is being passed, I guess, kind of like a prop, if you will, but this is an object. I could, if I wanted to, I could just console request, and if you want to pause it, I'm not going to do it right now. But if you want to, you should be able to console request and see what comes up and just read through it. I've done something like that before in this lesson where we console something in particular and it pulls up the entire object. So you always want to do a little test like that if you're not certain what's happening. Okay, so anyways, we're creating a new instance of the URL object with the request.url property, which is going to be a string, as you can see here. It returns the URL of request as a string, and we're going to store that in a container that we're naming URL. All right, and then const q, suppose it stands for query. Const q gets URL dot search params, and what are we passing in for that? We're passing in we're saying dot get rather. See, yeah, because that's a map dot get and then q. So go and get that. And then const context gets await context and then pass in q right there. And then return context. Okay, so now let's see what happens. What should happen now is as we start typing in a name in the search params, then it filters through the list up, and you see it's already doing it. Let's refresh this, and if I type in, oh, it's not doing it live. Oh, but when I hit enter, there it is. Michael Jackson pops up. Okay, so it does work. Cool. So it's not live filtering, which we could do. Uh, in other words, as we're typing in a character on the query, it is live updating um, and filtering through the list. That's not happening here. That's okay though. I mean, this does work. That's cool. All right. Because this is a get, not a post, React Router does not call the action function. Submitting a get form is the same as clicking a link, only the URL changes. This also means it's a normal page navigation. You can click the back button to get back to where you were. Okay, so in other words, we could just click back, and it'll take us back to where we are. Okay, so that's cool. Easy peasy. Okay, let's see. Synchronizing URLs to form state. There are a couple of UX issues here that we can take care of quickly. I think this is kind of what I was referring to. If you click back after a search, the form field still has the value you entered, even though the list is no longer filtered, or maybe not. May not be what I was referring to. If you refresh the page after searching the form, the field no longer has the value in it, even though the list is filtered. In other words, the URL and our input state are out of sync. Let's solve two first and start the input with the value from the URL. So return Q from your loader, set it as the input's default value. Okay, so we are returning it, we're adding it from the loader because we got Q. Here we've already returned context. We're also going to return Q. So let's come back here in the sidebar. So we're returning context, and then also again going to return Q. And then inside of our sidebar layout, where we're getting loader data right here, we're going to retrieve it right inside the sidebar layout component. And then when we do that, then we're able to come into our input and see we have a default value attribute inside. Here we are inside the input. It already has an ID of Q and a name of Q. Cool. We already did that. So let's set the default value. And again, we're going to set that to Q or an empty string. And let me just put a little space in there, just for readability purposes. Okay. Now it says the input field will show the query if you refresh the page after a search now. Okay, so and if I refresh the page there, the query is still showing. All right, cool. Now for problem one, clicking the back button and updating the input, we can bring in, here we go, use effect from React to manipulate the input's value in the DOM directly. And I think this right here is what I might have been referring to. So we're going to synchronize input value with the URL search params. So again, inside a sidebar, we're going to import use effect from React. So we got all these here. We're going to add that down here at the bottom. I'm going to import use effect. I so thoroughly enjoy use effect. For you newbies when it comes to React, so much better than what we had to do before. These React hooks, I do enjoy them. All right, so inside of our, here we have export default sidebar layout. After getting use navigation, so before our return, we're going to use effect. Okay, and so use effect. Let me come over here and just going to add a comment because if you've been doing some lessons before, some of these lessons before, you know what use effect is. You should know because we talked about that in my one of my one of my videos. We're using React Router. I think and also we were building a something. We're building something. I can't think of it right now. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. But anyways, use effect. This React hook has two arguments. The first one is a callback function. Okay, and the second is a dependency array. And so what use effect does is it handles any side effects that the React library by itself is not built to deal with. I'll say it like that because the way that React works, it it is live reacting or responding to the state of the application. So what that causes in a lot of ways is it can constantly uh, render and re-render and re-render, causing like an infinite loop, depending on how your information is retrieved, um, how that information that you have affects the state of the component. It can do some wonky things, and this is me just trying to explain what React does in very, very pure layman's terms. Uh, Sitting in a fireside with somebody, it can do some pretty wonky things. But with the use effect React hook, we can handle side effects so that it flows and functions much more efficiently. And so that's what we're going to do here. So first thing we need is our uh, callback function, which is generally like an anonymous function right inside of here. So const search field, I believe it's document.get element by ID Q. So do a little DOM manipulation here, if you will. So we're going to get uh, this essentially this form, this input right here, because it has an ID of Q. Hey, we're getting access to that element here. And then we're going to do a little if statement here. I'm going to say if what? If the search field, if the instance of the search field um, HTML input element, if search field instance of HTML input element. So this is if search field is an instance of HTML input element, then search field dot value is going to get Q. Oh, I need to fix this. Search field dot value is Q or empty string. Okay. Basically, it's saying, hey, um, if search field is an instance of HTML input element, which it is, then the value of search field is going to get Q, which is what we're getting from way up here from our loader data, or it's going to be an empty string. Okay. And let me clean this up right here. And then I'm going to add my dependency array. And when do I want the state of this to change? I want it to change when Q changes. Shouldn't you use a controlled component and React state for this? You can certainly do this as a control component. You'll have more synchronization points, but it's up to you. And let's see what this looks like. So here, and this is we're referring to with the control component here, we're using use state. And this is probably the way that I would do it. So we're importing use state, use effect. So here inside of uh, the sidebar layout component, we're using state, setting const query. Well, we're using state, initializing state rather with query and set query as queue or an empty string. So the state of this component is, well, initial state of this component is based on query, which is a queue or an empty string. And you still got to do use effect. Okay, so here we're saying use effect and set query here to be queue or an empty string, and queue again is still our dependency array. And then we're saying, hey, on the change, take the event, set query, event.current.target.value. This is more like I would, if I were just doing this on my own, I would handle it this way. Um, just because I like to do that. And again, uh, as far as like synchronization, yes, it works much better, but this should still get the job done. Let me let's clear this out, refresh this. Let's go back. Let's see what happens. Uh, I don't really know what it should what it should do. You should be able to click the back forward refresh buttons, and the inputs value should be in sync with the URL and results. Okay, so it should be in sync up here. So again, if I type Alex, okay, and I type the back button, and yes, the URL is in sync with the search. So that's what we were looking at. So I'm gonna do that again. Uh, I'm gonna type Alex, okay, and I hit enter. And when I do that, you see the query here in the URL search params, but you also see the data. And if I hit the back button, what should happen is that not only is um, our data here going back to, back a page, if you will. So the list of contacts should be displayed, but also the query up here should be gone. When I do that, there it is. You see that the query is no longer there, and the list of contacts is there as well. All right. Let's roll through this one right here. Submitting forms on change. We've got a product decision to make here. Sometimes you want the user to submit the form to filter some results. Other times you want to filter as the user types. Aha, that's where I am. This is the world I live in. We've already implemented the first, so let's see what it's like for the second. We've seen use navigate already. We'll use its cousin or cousins. You submit for this. So in sidebar, we're gonna go. We're still here in sidebar. We're gonna add this use submit hook. So let's see. Right here, it's on React Router. I'm gonna add use submit. There we go. I like this one. So we added use submit, adding that React Router hook for imports, and then we need to instantiate it. So here inside of sidebar layout, let's do that above. Let's do that right below use navigation. So right here, we're gonna add use submit. So we'll say const submit. It's an instance of use submit. I believe they just called it submit. Sure did. Okay, cool. And so now what we want to do is we want to say, hey, on the change. So in other words, whenever this form changes, then run this method here. Um, run this hook, if you will, which is going to live. It should live update the data or the list of contacts, in other words. So every time we type in a key, it should live update. That's what should happen, and it happens on the change. Okay, so that's why we need this on change prop. So here inside the form, oh, let me come back over here. Inside this form, search form, See, it has an ID search form, and we're going to add to the form on change. Matter of fact, I'm going to do this on separate lines. Okay. On change, what do we want to do? Let me, what do we want to do on the change? On the change, we're going to run this function. We're going to take in an event. And what do we want to do with this event? We're going to submit. Oh, I'm sorry. Event dot current target. Okay. And I want to say that should do it. Let's see. As we type M, there it is. ICH. Cool. So there it is. So that is what I want to do on change. And and again, I'm going through this tutorial, okay? And this is again showing you how to use these tutorials. What I would do here is, so we already got submit. What I would probably do is, let's say I would come right here above my return. Maybe I'll make a function const handle change. Going to take an event as an argument. And what do I want to do? I want to submit. I will use that React router hook to say submit event dot current target. So I would do that right here. Okay. And then here I would have this little anonymous function right here that will run handle change like so. Let me see if I got this correct. That's how I would do it. Let's see if this works. It is not working. Ooh, okay. Yeah, that doesn't work. Maybe it doesn't like event. A parameter event implicitly has in any type. Oh, okay. So it doesn't like it right there. I think it's because of TypeScript, and uh, that would have to be it. Um, yeah, that would be my guess this why it's not working, because we're using TypeScript. Which, I've looked at TypeScript, to be honest with you. I've done a little bit of it, but I'm not well versed in TypeScript. As my little vulnerability point right there for today. So let me let's set this back to where it was. But that's something again that I would normally try to do. I would I like to write my functions up here above the return. So that way for me, I don't like, I like the components to just kind of run. I like the functionality to be above the return. So when it renders, it's just rendering. All the logic and everything, I like it to be up here above my return, as instead of as opposed to writing logic here inside of my JSX elements. That's just me. Um it depends. Now there's some instances where it definitely uh handles much better, or will just handle it all. For example, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe that React really likes. So, like here, for example, where I'm using this ternary. here inside of my NavLink component. Uh, React does not like, I couldn't use it if else here. React is not a fan of that inside the components. So you would need to use a ternary operator as opposed to if else when it comes to conditionals inside of React components. So a little something to keep in mind. As you type, the form is automatically submitted. Now, note the argument to submit. The submit function will serialize and submit any form you pass to it. We're passing in event.currentTarget. The current target is the DOM node the event is attached to, which is a form. All right, we'll stop this video here and we'll take a break. We're gonna go to the next video, and the next video we should be finished with this project here. So if you've been following along and actually typing it along with me, then kudos to you. Um, you're learning how to learn essentially. So we should be able to complete this in the next video.